Sophia stood in the living room, watching her mother walk in, holding the hand of another girl. It was the date her mom brought her biological daughter back from the orphanage.
Hello, sister. I'm Emily.
Emily's eyes, though timid, held a certain pride in provocation. Sophia remained silent, her mother noticing her unease.
Sophia, you are also my daughter. Don't worry, I won't favor one over the other. We are still a family.
Sophia gently withdrew her hand, her eyes reflecting the conflict within.
You are the real family.
Her mother, mistaking her words for jealousy, smiled and patted her head.
Silly child, don't say such things. Sophia, you are the elder sister. You should take good care of your younger sister. Emily, she is your sister. You should get closer to her.
Sophia glanced at Emily's bright, deer-like eyes, feeling a churning in her stomach. She squatted down and began to retch.
Sorry, I couldn't hold it in.
Both her mother and Emily looked embarrassed. Sophia straightened up, just catching her breath, and saw Emily squatting down to retch as well. Sophia didn't mean to. It was just a physical reaction. In my previous life, I naively thought I had gained a sister. My mother's attitude towards me remained unchanged, and I foolishly believed I was happy, immersed in the illusion of family affection. It wasn't until my mother forcefully dragged me to the hospital to be a donor match for my gravely ill brother that I began to see the truth.
Isn't Emily his biological sister? Wouldn't her chances of being a match be higher?
In response, I received a harsh slap across my face, leaving it swollen.
Your sister has suffered so much outside, while you have enjoyed our family's benefits for years. Now, we just want you to be a donor.
As fate would have it, I was indeed a match. I was then subjected to a forced surgery to remove my kidney. While they celebrated my brother's new lease on life in the next room, I lay in agony, unable to sleep through the nights. One evening, Emily came skipping to my bedside.
Do you really think Mom loves you? The only reason she didn't kick you out was to have you provide a kidney for my brother. She couldn't bear to have her own daughter go through that. Oh, and she's planning to marry you off to that twisted guy from the Sioux family. Everyone knows how cruel he is with women. Who knows how long you'll survive once you're married to him?
I clutched my wound and cried out in pain on the hospital bed. I knew about David, the second son of the Sioux family. Women who had spent just one night with him would turn pale at the mention of his name. But the Sioux family was wealthy, even more so than the Lynn family. With the Lynn family's business facing financial troubles, they desperately needed a powerful marriage alliance. Before my surgical wounds had fully healed, my mother sent me to David's bed. Within a month, I was tormented to death. But in this life, I won't be so foolish. Foolish enough to believe in the so-called mother-daughter bond. Let Emily bear that burden instead. The next day, she wore a pristine white dress, standing beside my mom, looking innocent and harmless. My mom took her to the car, planning to visit my bedridden brother at the hospital.
Sophia, get in the car.
Emily sat in the front passenger seat, looking at me with a smug expression. It was as if she wanted to say, "You only get the back seat, while I get to sit next to Mom."
You go ahead. I need to study.
In my previous life, I didn't even get to take the college entrance exam before they sent me to the operating table, and then to that dreadful place. But this time, I was determined to get into my dream university and fulfill my unachieved aspirations. A flash of displeasure crossed Sarah's eyes, but she said nothing more. I turned and walked away.
I was about to leave, and after all these years here, I realized I didn't have any savings. Of course, she never treated me like her own daughter. Why would she buy me any expensive gifts? Even my New Year's money was just a goodnight kiss. Huh.
I packed my bags. Fortunately, all these years at the elite school weren't wasted. By selling off luxury items my classmates didn't want, I had made quite a bit of money. It was more than enough to support myself through college.
Next, I needed to break free from the Michael family, who seemed intent on draining me dry.
When Sarah brought Emily back home, the sky had already turned dark. I was diligently studying at my desk in the bedroom.
Sister, you're so hardworking, unlike me who can only keep mom and brother company, making them happy. Sister, you didn't go to the hospital this time. Brother really misses you.
Misses me? More like he wants me to be a donor for him. Michael had disliked me since childhood. He would throw building blocks at me while I played, tell me inappropriate jokes, and bring his friends over to harass me. He would also viciously warn me not to think about taking any money from the family. Ha, someone like him would miss me? I didn't even lift my head.
Don't disturb your sister's studies. She's preparing for her college entrance exams this year.
Then she gently closed my bedroom door. If I hadn't seen her true colors in my previous life, I might have really thought she was considering my well-being. The next day, she was indeed eager to take me to the hospital. I knew my brother's condition couldn't hold out much longer. None of the hospital's matches were suitable, so she was naturally anxious, turning her attention to me. I didn't resist and accompanied her to the hospital. There was a fleeting look of surprise in her eyes.
Sophia, you're so sensible. Mom didn't raise you in vain.
I remained silent, not forgetting to read my book even in the car. Emily didn't come along this time. Sarah claimed it was to create a mother-daughter bonding moment. In reality, she probably feared that with Emily around, I wouldn't be willing to be a donor. At the hospital, she grabbed my hand and headed straight for the attending physician.
This is my daughter, Sophia. Try matching her with my son.
Your daughter is still young. How about waiting a bit longer? Although losing a kidney isn't fatal, it does have significant impacts on lifespan and health.
I told you to do the match! Why so much nonsense?
She completely lost her dignified demeanor, startling the doctor. Realizing she had been too loud, she immediately switched to a gentle tone, speaking softly to me.
Sophia, be good. You want your brother to get better soon, right? Doing the match doesn't hurt at all.
I don't want to.
The smile on her face froze.
I don't want to be a donor.
She looked at me in silence, her expression turning frighteningly dark. Smack! She slapped me hard across the face.
You ungrateful girl! How could I have such an unfilial daughter? You're letting your brother suffer.
Then she grabbed my hand and started dragging me towards the matching department. I had anticipated this. I suddenly opened my mouth and bit down hard on her arm. She let go in pain. I immediately ran to the most crowded area and started making a scene, rolling on the ground and shouting.
Help! She's not my real mom! She's forcing me to be a donor for her son, to take my kidney! Help!
I screamed at the top of my lungs, and more people gathered around. Everyone started pointing fingers at my supposedly dignified mother. In the end, she had no choice but to give up and take me home. As soon as Sophia got home, she slammed the door shut, her expression grim.
How dare you embarrass me at the hospital like that?
Seeing that Sophia was unmoved, Sarah played the family card.
Sophia, I know you're scared, but that's your brother. You've grown up together. How can you be so heartless?
Sophia remained silent, her face impassive.
If you don't help him, he won't make it. And if you donate to him, save him, our whole family will take care of you. You won't suffer a bit.
She even shed a few crocodile tears. Emily came over and comforted her mother with a pat on the shoulder.
Sophia, you really have no heart making Mom so upset. It's just a donation, not your life. Is it that hard for you after all these years of family ties? Can't you make this small sacrifice?
Sophia sneered, crossing her arms as she looked at the mother and daughter.
Why don't you do the donation? It seems like a biological sister has a higher success rate, right? I'm just an outsider. Even if it succeeds, if there's a rejection, he might not survive.
Emily was so furious that she pointed at Sophia, speechless. Sarah's eyes flashed with a hint of malice, but she suppressed it.
Sophia, if you can't accept it now, let's talk about it tomorrow.
Sophia ignored her and went straight to her room to continue studying. The holiday was almost over, and she didn't want her grades to suffer when she went back. The next day, Sarah knocked on Sophia's door.
Sophia, I shouldn't have hit you yesterday. But your brother's condition is critical, and I lost my head in a moment of panic. Please don't blame me.
Sophia lowered her head, saying nothing.
This is the dress for tonight's banquet. The Sue family is hosting a party at their suburban villa with a pool. I'll take you with me.
Sophia smirked coldly. She knew Sarah wouldn't let her go unless she ruined her. Since she refused to donate, Sarah planned to take her to the Sue family to be humiliated. If that's the case, she wouldn't hold back. Before leaving in the evening, Emily stared at Sophia with resentment. As if saying, "Why do you get the privilege to attend the banquet?" Sophia wanted to say, "Would you like this privilege?" In the car, Sarah kept trying to brainwash her, saying how David, at such a young age, was already managing the family business excellently, a true young talent. She also said he was genuinely good to her and chose to take her instead of Emily. Sophia couldn't listen anymore, so she put on her headphones and closed her eyes to listen to English audio. At least until tonight, Sarah wouldn't tear her mask off. At the banquet, glasses clinked, and as the hostess, Mrs. Sue, saw Sophia, she affectionately tried to get close. But as she turned around, Sophia coldly stepped on her dress, and when she tried to move forward, she fell hard. Her fair knee instantly got scraped, blood flowing. In her previous life, Sophia was tormented by David, almost to the brink of despair, and she sought Mrs. Sue's help. Mrs. Sue looked at her wounds and smiled indifferently. She didn't spare Sophia another glance. The next day, Sophia was locked in the basement and beaten even more brutally by David that night.
My mom said I can't even handle a woman. It's all your fault I got scolded.
He angrily pinned her to the bed, starting a new round of torment. If David was the perpetrator, Mrs. Sue was the one handing him the weapon. This scene scared Sarah, who quickly helped Mrs. Sue up. After all, offending the Sue family would mean no way to save her business crisis.
I'm so sorry, Linda. She's just a child, inexperienced with such grand occasions. She accidentally stepped on your dress. I apologize on her behalf.
Mrs. Sue's eyes looked at Sophia like a venomous snake lurking in the dark, probably thinking of ways to torment her. Too bad, she overthought.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Sue, but stepping on your dress was intentional.
Not only did Sophia step on it, but she also poured wine on her. So, under everyone's gaze, she poured the red wine in her hand over Mrs. Sue's head. Sophia laughed heartily.
If you can't discipline your son, heaven will. I'll give you a taste of it on behalf of heaven.
Linda screamed, her clothes soaked through.
Angry, Linda, what do you think you're doing?
Angry, what am I doing? You've no right to ask.
David strode over, his steps long and determined. Before he could reach her, he swung a slap in her direction. Linda dodged, and the slap landed squarely on the bewildered Sarah beside her.
Shocked. David, what are you doing?
The surrounding guests, who hadn't witnessed such a spectacle in high society for a long time, stopped their conversations and stared intently. They were thoroughly engrossed in the drama.
Shouting, David is impotent.
As soon as these words left her mouth, chuckles began to ripple through the crowd. They tried to hold it in but couldn't.
Desperate. Linda, stop it. Please.
Sarah looked at Linda in disbelief, wanting to come over and cover her mouth while apologizing to the other guests.
Nervous. I'm sorry. Linda, my daughter Sophia has some issues. I'll take her away right now.
Regretting bringing me here? Sorry, too late. Linda stepped back and continued to drop bombshells.
Shouting, David is not only impotent, but he also has a basement where he mistreats women.
The crowd gasped, their faces a mix of shock and horror.
Serious, people have already lost their lives there, and not just one.
In her previous life, when she first arrived at the Sue family, Linda thought David's absurdity and outrageous behavior were just rumors. One day, while organizing his study, she accidentally opened his laptop and found videos on a USB drive. The videos showed girls being mistreated in the basement. Those girls had only been reported as missing persons by the police because they were orphans with no one to rely on.
Serious, when I discovered this and was about to report it, I found out that the phone in my room was being monitored and the calls were redirected to him. That's when I realized he was a monster.
David's eyes flashed with murderous intent. It seemed he wanted to tear her apart right then and there.
Serious, unfortunately for you, I recorded everything on my way here. If I don't return, the audio will be sent to the police automatically.
The faces of the onlookers changed dramatically. They hadn't expected to get more than they bargained for. They wished they hadn't heard any of it.
Hopeful, with so many people present, you can't silence everyone, David.
When the security guards tried to drag her away, Linda clung to the ground, writhing and twisting. Whoever tried to pull her, she bit.
Shouting, I have a contagious illness, don't come near me.
One by one, they were too scared to approach, watching her go berserk. Sarah fainted on the spot, her eyes rolling back.
Shaking head, her mental fortitude is truly lacking.
Linda didn't return to the Lynn family after leaving the banquet. No matter what, it had nothing to do with her anymore. She just hoped the Lynn family business would go bankrupt as expected. That her sickly brother, Michael, would meet his end. And that Sarah and Emily would end up begging on the streets, and when she passed by, she'd take all the money from their bowls.
Determined, as for the Sue family, this incident won't have any immediate impact. But I won't let him off so easily.
Although it felt liberating to act recklessly, I still had to prepare for the college entrance exam. To avoid any retaliation, I called the principal that day and withdrew from school. Then, I enrolled in a school in the neighboring city. Living alone is truly liberating. I devoted myself entirely to studying for the exam, patiently waiting for the new term to start. On the first day of school, I was stopped by a school bully. While all the other girls were accompanied by their parents or relatives, I was the only one walking to class alone with my backpack.
Nice mark. Did a man give it to you?
The group of troublemakers behind him also chuckled knowingly.
Yeah, your dad gave it to me. I'm the mistress he keeps on the side. Go on, call me Mom, good boy.
The bully's face darkened, and he lunged at me, ready to punch. His lackeys held him back.
Boss, there are too many people around. It's not a good idea. We can find her tonight.
He thought for a moment, then pointed at me and whispered a threat.
Don't leave after school.
Whoever leaves first is a coward.
In my previous life, I had seen the worst of human nature. Why would I be afraid of a mere bully now? That evening, after the self-study session, the classroom was nearly empty, but I was still engrossed in my books. When I checked my watch, it was already 11 p.m. The homeroom teacher, James, walked over and noticed I hadn't left yet.
Sophia, aren't you going home?
I'm just about to, Mr. James. Let's go together.
He agreed. At the beginning of the term, after reviewing my file, he had patted my shoulder and said with a touch of emotion,
I'll take good care of you, Sophia.
And he did. He seated me at the front and frequently checked on my progress during breaks. I was genuinely grateful to him. As we walked, he kept asking about the key points of today's lessons. I had almost forgotten about the bully. Unexpectedly, in a dark alley, the bully's voice came from behind. Under the dim streetlight, I could see he was holding an iron rod.
Let's see who can save you now.
James remained hidden in the shadows, unnoticed by them. He was about to speak, but I stopped him.
I wasn't planning to avoid you.
The bully was surprised. Not many people could face him alone and remain calm. I crouched down, feeling around on the ground.
What are you looking for?
Maybe she's looking for a smooth spot to kneel and beg for mercy.
Everyone laughed, and the bully chuckled too.
Sophia, if you kneel and bow to me, and hang out with me for a while, maybe I'll let you go.
I stood up, weighing the brick in my hand. It felt substantial. Then I walked towards him. Caught off guard, he didn't react in time. I struck him on the head with the brick. Blood trickled down his face. He looked at me in disbelief, instinctively touching his forehead. His lackeys were stunned.
If you want to fight me, I'm not afraid. Go ahead, hit me on the back of my head. Just one blow, and I guarantee you won't survive.
I bent down, inviting him to strike.
But I bet you don't have the guts.
I straightened up and looked into his eyes. His gaze was no longer mocking but filled with fear.
Boss, let's get out of here. She's crazy. Let's not mess with her. It's bad luck.
The bully didn't touch me. Holding his head, he and his lackeys fled in panic. After they left, I scoffed and tossed the brick aside. James emerged from the shadows.
Sophia, you.
He hesitated and sighed.
You've been through a lot, haven't you?
Yes, as an orphan, what else could I expect but hardship? In this new life, I understood that with no way out, my only option was to fight.
From now on, let Mr. James walk you home.
I waved him off.
Not all bad people are as easy to deal with as he was.
After a moment, he added,
I have a daughter. If she were still alive, she'd be about your age.
In a quiet, dimly lit room, James sat alone, a cigarette in hand, lost in thoughts of the past. His life had taken a tragic turn, and the weight of his memories was almost unbearable.
I devoted everything to my teaching, but I neglected my family. It cost me my marriage.
His voice was barely a whisper, filled with regret. His wife's decision to divorce had left him shattered. Andrew, a former student who had returned from abroad, visited James one day. He found James in a cloud of smoke, surrounded by empty bottles.
Mr. James, it's been a while. How have you been?
Andrew, it's good to see you. Life's been tough, but I'm managing.
Andrew's visit brought a glimmer of hope to James's life. He offered his support and guidance, helping James slowly find his way back. One evening, after dropping Sophia, a bright student, at her home, James noticed a distinctive birthmark behind her ear.
Sophia, this birthmark of yours is quite unique. I've seen it somewhere before. How about we search online for your biological parents? They might be looking for you too.
I appreciate your concern, Mr. James. Let's give it a try.
From that moment, James and Sophia embarked on a journey to uncover her past. Meanwhile, at school, the notorious bully, Justin, seemed to have a sudden change of heart.
Sophia, I brought you some snacks.
I don't like scum. Keep your snacks.
No, I don't mean any harm. I think you're cool. Can I be your follower?
Stop bullying others and start helping them. Once you've done that, come find me.
Surprisingly, Justin took her words to heart, turning over a new leaf and spreading Sophia's name as a mentor throughout the school. Time flew by, and the day before the college entrance exam, James invited Sophia to his home for dinner.
With your grades, getting into Tsinghua or Peking University won't be a problem. You might even be the top student in the province.
Thank you, Mr. James. I'll do my best.
He also shared some exciting news about an online post he made to help find her biological parents.
A butterfly birthmark? The Yan family in Beijing might be looking for you. Could it be you?
The Yan family? It's unlikely. But thank you for your efforts.
The next day, Sophia aced her exams, feeling divinely inspired. When the results came out, she had achieved the highest score in the province.
I knew you could do it, boss.
Reporters flocked to the school to interview Sophia and her homeroom teacher.
Do you have anything to say to other students?
The journey hasn't been easy, but effort always surpasses standing still. When you look up again, the scenery of life will have changed.
After the interview, Sophia treated her friends to a meal, but an unexpected visitor arrived.
It's all your fault. My family has lost everything because of you.
Emily's accusations were filled with bitterness and rage.
I won't give you money. Your downfall is your own doing.
That night, Sophia called David, a powerful figure she had crossed paths with.
David, it's Sophia. I know you're looking for me. But you should be scared. I'm the long-lost daughter of the Yan family.
Impossible.
Believe what you want. Pay me to forget your dirty deeds, or I'll tell the police everything.
Days later, millions were transferred to her account, but David's revenge was swift. He kidnapped Sophia and her friends.
You won't leave this place alive.
Let my friends go. They're innocent.
Just as the blade touched her skin, a voice echoed through the room.
I dare anyone to try.
Andrew, the Yen family's heir, had arrived just in time. When Sophia woke up in the hospital, she found herself surrounded by her real family.
Yen, you're safe now. We'll make those who hurt you pay.
In the end, David was arrested, and his family's business crumbled. Sophia, now in her rightful place, looked towards a brighter future.
Why take their money, boss?
It's what they owed me from my past life.
With her new identity and the support of her family, Sophia's journey had only just begun.